Hey everyone, and welcome to another example on table views. And this time I'm going to show you how we can use table views as a lookup table. Of course, you could do that with UIKit, data picker, but sometimes you might have a scenario where you need to list a lot of data and maybe table views would be a good option for that. So how we do that? I've created already a sample app. We've done this before. If you don't know how to do that, you can go back and view what we've done before in the previous lectures related to the table view. So we have a main view controller. This view controller has a button. When you click on that button, it shows this table view. On this table view have a list of food types. When we select one, we're going to take it back here. Now, I've done the part where we list the table view, we list the values. I haven't done the part where we select the value, we take it back to the calling view controller. So let's just simply run it. And then here is the application. You click on that, and then you got the list of food types. Now, when I select this, what should happen is that this one will disappear, and then the value will be sent back to this view controller. All right, so this one we haven't covered before, and I'm going to cover it in this lecture. Before we do that, let's take a look at the app that we have. If you look at the view controller is still empty, nothing in it. If we look on the table view controller, and we've done that in the previous video, we have an array of food types. This is a list of the foods that we're going to display in that table view. We've changed the number of sections in the table view to include one, because we have only one section, and then the number of rows depends on the values on that array, which is food types. Then I uncommented the cell for row. We basically populating. We're using the index.row. Again, this is explained before. The index.row and the food types and the array, and then we set the label, text label in the table view, return cell. Now I changed the cell type, the cell identifier in the main storyboard. So if you have this is the main storyboard. If you look at the property for this guy, you'll see the cell identifier is cell. This is a common pitfall for programmers. So you could do that and take it out, all right? So the other thing that you have here, and change it, sorry, you can change that to the same type that you have. The other thing that you have here, that's somebody walked in, so that's sorry, okay. So now, what do we need to do? What we need to do, this already works. So basically, I right-click on this, and then select it, modal, show it, present it modally. All right. So that is already done for us. All right. And then I need to create the outlet now for this guy. So we'll go to the assistant, and then I'm just going to simply create an outlet here. So this is txt food type. Done that. All right. What else do we have to do? Now, let me explain something for you. Let me save that, and then let me close it. The trick to this is that if I select a value here, how do we take it to the calling view controller, right? Now, in the previous lectures, we talked about segues. Segues, and the examples we've done is that we passed information from here to here. Now, how do I pass information from this guy to this guy? Now, we use something called unwind segues. Unwind, basically, when I close this view controller, I want to unwind back to a previous view controller. And this guy here is called the exit. So instead of connecting back to this, I simply connect to this guy here, the exit button. And if there is any segues, unwind segues defined in any of the view controllers, if we have multiple view controllers, then it would be listed here. So you can unwind back to any segues you want, to any view controller you want. Now, to do this, we need to define these unwind segues in the parent view controller, if you want to call it that way, all right, or the calling view controller. So the first thing, we need to define an unwind segue in this view controller in the code. And then when we select something, we tie it back to this guy, all right? So let's just define that method first. So I need to go to the view controller, the calling view controller, and I'm gonna put IB action method, and then we're gonna call it, it's a function, and I'm gonna call it just unwind to food types, to food view controller, okay? Hold on. All right, somebody walked in again. So here, so what do we need to do? So this is just regular segue, basically. We need to the regular function, but we pass to it a segue, okay? So I'm gonna define a parameter called segue. And then the type of this is UI storyboard segue. Okay, the UI storyboard segue. All right. That's all you have to do to receive something back from another view controller. All right. So now here, what are we doing here? If once I define this, look what's going to happen. If I go back to the main storyboard, and then if I click here, right click here, you'll see that method available for me, or that function. So now I can call this function or this unwind segue from any view controller that I have here, or table view controller that I have here, or controller for that matter. So now when I select this, notice what's going to happen. When I right click on this and then send it to here, I say there is a segue selection segue. What it means that when I select this value, I want to unwind back to this view controller. All right. So let's test that part. So now if I run it again, you'll notice when I select a value, it will call back, it will go back to this view controller. Okay. So if I click on type, click on fruit, it took me back. So that works. Okay. Now, what do we need to do? What we need to do, we need to take the value that is selected and set it in this class. So this class have access to it. All right. So how do I do that part? So let's go back to this guy first. All right. So go to the table view controller again. In the table view controller, what I'm going to do, I'm going to define selected value, let selected, or var, because we're going to change it, var selected value type, let's call it, equal, we'll start with blank. All right. So just in case that somebody access it from outside, and I don't want to make it optional, because if you make it optional, then you have to check if it is set on the other class or not. But if you set it as a default, even if they didn't select it, and it's still blank, so it's fine. So that's one thing. The other thing that you need to do now in the prepare for segue, because we're navigating from this class or this view controller to this view controller. So what I need to do, I need to set my prepare for segue to go back here. And what do I do in the prepare for segue? I get the value that I've selected from the selected value, and I set that selected value, which is in here, I set that selected value to the one that is being selected. All right. So let's do that part. So there is a navigation part here, which is, if you go scroll down, navigation. You see that? It says prepare for segue. All right, good. So I just simply need to uncomment this function. So I'm going to uncomment this guy, uncomment this guy. All right. And then what are we going to do in here? What we're going to do in this guy, get the selected cell and simply set this attribute to the selected value. That's all we're doing. All right. Hold on. Okay, so how we do this part? First, we need to find out what value they have selected. So let's say let index path. We want the index path of the selected cell. All right, index path equals self dot table view, because this is a table view controller, and a table view controller automatically gets a table view inside of it. Dot selected index of the selected path. So index for selected row. All right. So what does that mean? This is going to give you the index path. Just like we did here, you get an index path. The index path is the one that you use to set the table properties, table cells. Now I got the index path of the selected cell. Now I need to get the row. So I say let row equal index path dot row. A lot of interruption. I'm getting a lot of interruption today. So anyway, let's continue. So now if we get lit row, and then we want to get the index path. So the index path is, it could be, maybe they did not select anything, right? So this is optional variable. So what do? So the best way to do it, you say if let index equal, you do optional binding. If let index equal index path, right? Then you could do this part. You get the row, right? Because maybe they did not select anything, right? So if let index path equal, okay. Oh, we don't want to use the index path now. We want to use just the index, all right? So I got the row, and I can now set the value of the one that we've selected here, which is selected type. We define there, say selected type equal the food types, and then we use the row that of the selected cell. All right. So now in this class, before we go to the next class, we check, did I select any cell or not? If I selected a cell, what do? We get the index path of the selected cell. This is give me an index path of the selected cell. And because it's optional, we check, we do the optional binding and say, is it not null? If it is not null, I get the row. You could have done it in one statement. And then I change the property selected type in this row, in this view controller. So that's it. The last thing we need to do, so we're done with this guy, and this happens before we navigate back to the previous view controller or view controller. Now we go back to the view controller, and now we do something in here. What do we do in here? What we need to do here, we just simply get from here, we get where we got the source of view controller, which is passed to us in this segue object. So I say let source view controller equal to what? Equal to segue dot source. That will give me where did I come from. And then because we don't know where we come from, I need to make sure I cast it to the what? To the class that I came from. And what is the class that we came from? The class that we came from is, the name of it is food type table view controller. So this is called food type table view controller. All right. And I know it exists. So that's, and I know I came back from it. So that's why I put force unwrapping. All right. So the next thing we need to do, we have this outlet, which is the text food type. We set it with the value that is the attribute that is in this table view controller. So all I need to do is say txt food type, that text equal to the source view controller where we came from, and that attribute should be already set. Dot what? Dot selected type. Oh, I may have a misspelling anyway. It's all right. This should be selected type. Sorry. So now, even if this was not selected and it doesn't have any value, if we close the table view controller, this will be blank. When we select the value, it will have a value and it will display it in the table view controller, in the view controller. So now if I run it, just simply check it out, see if it works. You'll notice that I have, when I click on this, now this, the first scenario, I don't want to select any value. I simply swipe down to close it. No value is set here. And so that's why we initialize it to blank, so we will not get an error. Now, if I select type, now if I select nuts, now nuts is showing here. If I select dairy, then dairy food is shown here. All right. So that is it. If you want to use table view controllers as a lookup tables, and you could have multiple values here, this is how you can use it, and how do you pass the value back to the coding view controller. And I think this would be a good exercise for you to try. So you have different ways you can use table view controllers, and then we are done with this. All right, and I'll see you in the next lecture.